Okay, picture this. Garbage. Banana peels, busted furniture, dirty diapers, basically the stuff everyone else happily pays to make disappear. Now I want you to picture that exact same garbage paying for custom-tailored suits, private elevators, and art collections worth more than most people's homes. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly fascinating reality. The waste management industry? It isn't just about moving dirt and trash. It is actually a highly sophisticated machine that relies on the lucrative physics of landfills to turn literally the dirtiest stuff on Earth into extreme, enduring wealth. Okay, let's dive into this because this question gets to the very heart of our explainer today. We are not looking at a simple garbage truck business here. If you think the big money is made by driving a rumbling truck around your neighborhood once a week, well, you're missing the real magic. What we're actually looking at is a financial mystery built entirely around legally protected scarcity. It's an asset class that, once physically filled, can basically never be replaced. To truly grasp this, we need to strip away the illusion of that daily trash haul, which brings us to Section 1, the billion-dollar hole, and the core asset holding up this entire industry.
When you break it down like this, the true product becomes obvious, doesn't it? It's scarcity. This shifts our entire perspective from viewing waste management as just a logistical hauling problem to recognizing it as a massive infrastructure monopoly. It's about the sheer physical reality of owning the real estate where the waste ends up and combining that unmovable land with the exclusive rights to collect the trash. Ultimately, whoever controls the buried disposal capacity controls everyone who needs somewhere to put their garbage.
Let's follow the money to see how this plays out on a granular level. The average American household throws away about 0.9 tons of trash a year and pays around $360 for the privilege of having it hauled away. But check out this breakdown. At the national average tipping fee, actually physically burying that 0.9 tons of trash only costs about $56. So where does the remaining $304 go? I mean, sure, some of it covers the trucks, the fuel, the labor, but a massive chunk of it is pure margin. There is just incredible room for profit when you completely control the final physical destination of the product.
So if the margins are this fantastic, why doesn't everyone just buy some land and open up a landfill? Well, that brings us to Section 2, the brutal cost of dirt, and the startup barriers that create an absolute financial fortress. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer brutality of the math. To build a modern facility, you need hundreds of acres of land, which runs about $6 million. But a landfill isn't just an empty field, right? You have to physically construct heavily lined cells to hold the waste and protect the groundwater. That's another $24 million just to get started. Add in $5 million for a starter fleet of bulldozers and compactors, and you're dropping $35 million in startup costs before a single garbage truck even tips a load of trash into the ground.
And here's the kicker. Even if you have $35 million sitting in the bank right now, you can't just open tomorrow. Citing a brand new landfill means navigating a grueling 5 to 10 years of environmental reviews, public hearings, and fierce community opposition. So for a decade, you are paying property taxes, engineering consultants, and massive legal fees on a piece of dirt that does absolutely nothing but sit there. This regulatory moat is basically an impenetrable barrier that keeps new competitors entirely locked out.
But once you cross that moat, the economics become extraordinary. Let's look at Section 3, trash revenue layers, and how operators secure multiple paydays for the exact same piece of garbage.
Let's map this out and see how this builds into an unstoppable financial engine. First, you have your exclusive municipal collection contracts. That gets the trash onto your trucks. Second, tipping fees. Every ton your collection trucks haul into your landfill is charged a fee. But since you own both the truck and the physical landfill, the money literally just moves from one of your pockets to the other. Third, as buried waste physically breaks down and decomposes, it naturally releases methane. Modern operators capture this landfill gas and upgrade it into renewable natural gas, which is a highly lucrative third revenue stream sitting right on top of the trash. Then you just add recycling and high-margin specialty waste on top of that.
When you own that whole process, you see profit margins hit 33%. And that isn't a lucky accident. It is the direct mathematical result of owning every single link in the chain and never, ever having to split the profits with a competitor at any handoff point.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of the business model. Section 4, the scarcity monopoly, and how it leads to absolute pricing power.
Listen to this reality. Total U.S. landfill capacity is projected to shrink by more than 15% over just 5 years. Unlike a tech company or a retail chain, competitors legally and physically cannot just step in and build more capacity to meet demand. It's dictated by the physical limits of available space. The space is running out, and it's practically impossible to create more.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this crisis isolates certain regions. While the total U.S. capacity is dropping by 15%, the Northeast is losing 30% of its capacity. Even crazier, 7 specific states are on track to run out of physical space entirely within half a decade. This creates a slow-motion monopoly. As supply plummets and demand remains completely inelastic because, let's face it, people will simply never stop making trash. The pricing power of existing landfill owners only gets stronger with every passing year.
But there is a dark side to this seemingly perfect financial fortress. Let's look at Section 5, the accounting trap. This is a slow-motion disaster that led to one of the largest corporate restatements in American history. Let's look at the company that essentially invented this industry's modern playbook. It actually all started back in 1893 with a Dutch immigrant named Harm Huizenga, who began hauling trash in Chicago with just a simple wagon. By 1968, his descendants formed Waste Management to execute a relentless roll-up strategy, basically buying up small haulers to control the market. They went public in 1972, pulling in $82 million a year across 133 swallowed companies. But by 1998, that brilliant strategy of consolidation had morphed into a $1.7 billion accounting scandal, ultimately wiping out $6 billion in shareholder value. So here are the mechanics of how the fraud actually worked. The trap lies in the literal physics of the assets. Because heavy garbage trucks and massive landfill cells physically age and lose value incredibly slowly, it's very hard for outsiders to verify their true accounting worth. Executives systematically extended the assumed useful life of their trucks on the books, which allowed them to avoid recording their true depreciation expenses. They quietly deferred those expenses for years, using the slow-aging physical nature of their assets to falsely inflate their earnings, all while their auditors signed off on the math.
Waste Management eventually recovered, but the scandal highlights a fundamental reality of the business. Welcome to Section 6, 30-year liability, the hidden debt of the industry.
Let's contrast the two realities of this $35 million investment. In the optimistic scenario, your monopoly cash flows compound safely. You maintain strict ESG compliance, your renewable natural gas systems generate clean energy from the decaying waste, and you outperform the S&P 500 for decades. But in a realistic bad year, an environmental review turns up severe groundwater contamination. Suddenly, your massive tipping revenue is diverted away from profits and poured entirely into unbudgeted remediation and staggering legal costs.
So the crucial point is this number right here, 30. When a landfill finally reaches its physical limit and closes its gates, the operator's obligation does not end. Federal law requires owners to fund 30 years of post-closure care. They have to cap the site, monitor the groundwater, and manage the methane gas for 3 entire decades after the very last bag of trash is buried in the dirt.
This business is ultimately a legally scarce hole in the ground wrapped around a massive debt that doesn't fully come due for decades. It forces us to ask, when the hole is finally full, the gates are locked, and the trucks stop coming, who really pays for the 30 years of toxic debt left behind? It's a fascinating question about the true long-term physical and financial cost of our everyday consumption, and definitely something to think about the next time you drag your bin out to the curb. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.